Hello and welcome into episode number 108 of the Cubs on Deck podcast. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Greg Huss, and I'm joined by my co-host Bryan Smith. 108. That's a good number for the Cubs, right? We're supposed to win a World Series this year, right?
Does that mean this is going to be like our best podcast since the first one?
I think that only makes sense, right?
I don't know that I have that level of quality in me today. I got to be honest.
No. I was gonna say I'm running on fumes a little bit, but hey, no, we're here to talk Cubs prospects as always. We both got you got a obvious shirt. Punting is winning, right? You got an obvious shirt on. I've got shout out to Joe over at Obvious Shirts. I've got the new Cubs minor league affiliate shirts.
I didn't even notice because I have the old one.
Nice. Yeah, because I was rocking. I think on last week's episode I rocked the Iowa, Tennessee, South Bend, Myrtle Beach. And Joe hooked me up with a new version of it with Knoxville instead of Tennessee. So I've got a piece of history with the Tennessee version of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Collector's item.
Exactly. So man, we're here today. For this episode, we've kind of really just got one topic, but we're going to be covering a lot of players with the one topic. Felt it's kind of appropriate. And honestly, it's a good time to do this because we're entering draft season, right? So the next few episodes are going to look probably a little bit different. I know next week I'm recording with Greg Zumak, and it's going to be a draft focused show. We'll still talk about, I know he did his solo show talking about the draft and what to expect and some players to look out for, answering a lot of questions, 4 weeks ago?
Yep.
Next week with me and Zumak, what we're going to do is we'll kind of preview the draft because the draft is happening on the 13th and 14th of July, if I'm not mistaken here. 13th and 14th. So next week's episode will be the final episode before the draft actually happens. So we'll do a preview, but we'll also talk about some current Cubs prospects going on. It won't be an episode entirely dedicated to the draft, but we'll talk about it a little bit. And then following that, typically what we do, we haven't talked about it yet, Bryan, but typically what we do is we do kind of a draft recap show. That those days following, it may not be on the Tuesday, it may be a couple days later, but a draft recap show, just kind of going through all the players the Cubs drafted in the 20-round draft. And that's always, honestly, that's one of my favorite shows every single year. I know that we get a lot of listens on those shows specifically because of their new prospects into the Cubs system. So we got some draft heavy stuff coming up. So this episode, what we're going to do is I actually posted on social media. I think it was we're recording this on Sunday. I posted on Saturday. My first half all-star teams from the Cubs system. We're right at the halfway. We just finished up the halfway mark of the minor league season. And so kind of like the major league all-star break, you don't really get an all-star break for the minor leagues in the way that we actually kind of used to, but we can still talk about like the best performers of the first half of the season. So what we'll do is we'll run through the positions, we'll run through all the players, give those guys their flowers, mention a few stats for each guy, kind of what stands out, why they were so impressive this season to start off. And then we'll also talk about some predictions for who we might see as kind of system all-stars over the course of the season, or who might stand out in the second half of the season this year. So am I missing anything? Should we just dig right into it?
Yeah, I mean, maybe maybe we'll get into some guys that just missed. And we should probably, one thing you and I didn't talk about was we should probably award out the player of the first half and the pitcher of the first half, give not just the all-star, but the sort of top billing.
Yeah, we can absolutely. I think that's a good idea too. Before we dig into this, I almost forgot. We literally talked about it right before I hit the record button, and I almost went off without mentioning it. The big news, as we're sitting here recording this at 5:00 on Sunday, is that Jaxon Wiggins was supposed to make a start in AA Knoxville today. That was following, I think he was scheduled for Wednesday of this week. I think I'm losing track of the days. He was scheduled for Wednesday to pitch. He was listed on minorleaguebaseball.com. He was listed on smokies.com. He was listed as the probable starter for that day, did not make a start. Then he was rescheduled online on the website to make the start on Sunday afternoon, and once again did not make that start. Antonio Santos made the start on Wednesday. Sam Armstrong made the start today on Sunday. Yep. And I think the reason why I want to bring it up at the top here of the episode is because in the 3 hours since he did not make that start, I've already had like 10 people reach out and say, what's going on with Jaxon Wiggins? I'm here to say, I don't know. I don't know what the hell is going on with Jaxon Wiggins. I don't know if it's injury related, under the weather related. Like Owen Caissie's been out the last few days, but it's been because he's been sick, right? I don't know if that's the deal with Jaxon. I don't know if it's promotion related or trade related. I have no idea.
Could be development related. Sometimes they don't announce that right away. I mean, it could be a lot of things. I think the easy thing is to assume injury right off the bat. But we might as well give time for Jaxon and the Cubs to announce that in the way they want. And, perhaps by the time this podcast comes out, you guys will all know more than we know in this moment.
Yeah. And I hope that's the case, but
yeah.
we know how tricky it can be with minor league announcements
right.
of injuries or development. Like it could be a workload management, like an innings limit type situation where they're holding them off there. And we don't know what it is. We're not as blessed with all the affiliates to have a Tommy Birch like what Iowa has. But like having Tommy Birch in Iowa, I know that he was getting some love over on the 1060 West Discord channel earlier this week in prospects, and having Tommy Birch as the beat writer for the Iowa Cubs is like, we're incredibly blessed to have him there and find out information about that team when really like that's not normal in minor league baseball.
Right. Yeah, no. And Tommy does such a good job of blending sort of beat reporting and, getting actual news out with awesome profiles that help us know guys better too. So yeah, it's a real luxury.
All right. So let's get into these. I'm going to display, if you're watching on YouTube, I'll display the names that I have as my first half all-stars, but that does not necessarily mean they align with Brian's, and Brian can kind of pick them apart and say who he'd rather have there. I'll read them off. So if you're listening on podcast form, can obviously hear them as well. Don't want you just focused on YouTube if that's not how you consume the show. So we'll start off with the starting pitchers. Might as well start off at the top. I've got 5 names for my starting pitchers of the first half, and that's Jaxon Wiggins, Ryan Gallagher, Will Sanders, Evan Aschenbeck, and Grant Kipp are the 5 guys. So you got Wiggins and Kipp in AA. You've got Will Sanders in AAA, and you've got Gallagher and Aschenbeck, who are both in High A South Bend. Anybody else you throw into the mix, or who you want to talk about first?
I think those would be the 5 name. I think the guy that maybe to talk about first is, I think Ryan Gallagher is someone that started. Did he? I want to say maybe didn't make the first turn or two of his rotation, and then started a little slow, but came on so strong. And Ryan's sitting there in South Bend still with a 3.34 ERA, 75 strikeouts against 15 walks in 59 innings. So just an absolute stud first half. And we said so much in the offseason that there was that sort of area of the system, the high A range needed some breakout guys, and Ryan stepping in and filling that role has been huge. Evan Aschenbeck kind of has done the same thing, right? I mean, started in Myrtle Beach, was just absolutely ridiculous against low A hitters, and has moved up to South Bend. Looked a little shaky early on, has really found his footing the last few starts, and he's been really good too. So those are guys that are newer names to the system that finding a spot on the All-Star list, to me, like, that jumps out that they've really earned it.
Yeah, we've detailed it at length on the show that we were skeptical is probably too strong of a word about last year's draft. It was more just it was a very wait and see, because we felt less confident immediately following the draft in 2024 than we did in 2023 or 2022 even, where in those 2 drafts we were like, there's these 5 players that I really like, all 5 of these players. But last year's draft, it was kind of just wait and see which of these guys stand out. And we needed to wait for that to happen. And for mid-season 2025, for both Ryan Gallagher and Evan Aschenbeck to show out in the way they have is super important when we've been calling for more development of starting pitchers over the course of the past couple of years,
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the draft last year, we didn't have much to wrap our arms around, it was more of a straightforward draft, with the second round pick being someone who'd missed a lot of the year with an injury. Pitching kind of came later, and it was pretty bunched together in a way that it was hard to know sort of who the Cubs liked better than other guys. And we're starting, I think, now to really sort of have a feeling on, what do the Cubs have in guys like Gallagher and Aschenbeck.
Grant Kipp's an interesting name to have on this All-Star. I think that it's super fun to have Gallagher and Aschenbeck on here because they were drafted last year. It's even more fun that Grant Kipp has made this All-Star team, this made-up All-Star team that I just created. I know that he stood out for you from basically start number 1 this year.
Yeah.
But he was a undrafted guy a few years ago out of he Yale?
Yale.
Yale. Yeah. I know that I remember Sam Wiederhaft really liked Grant Kipp from the moment he stepped foot in Myrtle Beach. And I was like, yeah, I kind of like him. I like what he's about, but like not as much as what Sam Wiederhaft did. And now he's just kind of like really breaking out this year in a big way.
Yeah, Kipp, I think, was an undrafted free agent that signed after a couple appearances in the Cape Cod League, which is a very like Cub thing to do. He had like one good outing in the Cape Cod League, and they're like, no, we want that now. And then last year they sent him to the Arizona Fall League when he did not seem like an obvious choice at all. But I think they really did see something, and I think that they, I think specifically what they saw probably is that he has a really good affinity for throwing breaking balls. It's just he's really solid at it, and I think they thought if they got him down to Arizona and worked with him sort of that close to all their facilities and had some other people talk to him about it, that they could find a balance there that worked better than he'd shown in outings prior to that. And I think they did. And yeah, I mean, he's just been fantastic. I think he absolutely could be in Iowa if they needed a spot there. He's a guy that has enough stuff now to strike out really good hitters and enough, pitchability, for lack of a better word, to sort of grind through outings. He's been really impressive. I mean, honestly, maybe my favorite like start in and start out watch this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's the most fun development of the year. To have a 25-year-old break out this way in Double-A from an undrafted guy like that, that's not normal. That's the Cubs. That's the Cubs showing off how well they can develop pitchers, right? Like that's like you want the Cubs to develop a guy like Ryan Gallagher, a guy like Evan Oschenbeck, or a Will Sanders guy who was a 4th round draft pick. Like you want that, but Grant Kipp is just the Cubs saying, "Hey, look what we can do. We can."
And
shout out to Grant Kipp.
I
want to shout out to Grant Kipp. Like it's we point a lot of times when we're talking about these players and these players breaking out, especially pitchers. We're like, oh, look at this, like look at the pitch lab. Look at what these coaches are doing to make these players so damn good. And that is true. Like that is absolutely true. We've been waiting for this. We've been asking for this for a long time. But the player also has to take to coaching really well. They have to work really hard to identify pitches and grips and ways to attack hitters and sequencing and getting arm strength up and getting their conditioning better. Like they have to do all these things to become a better player. It's not just the Cubs development staff waves a wand and all of a sudden Grant Kipp's a really good player,
Yeah, and I mean, if we'd sort of given flowers to every prospect in the last 10 years over a half that's done well, we'd find a lot of pitchers that their stuff is pretty soft and their odds of pitching in the major leagues are pretty low, but they have a really good couple months. I mean, it could be Nico Zeglin last year. It could be Duncan Robinson. It could be Jen Ho-Sang, depending on how far back you want to go. Kipp is not like one of the people on that list to me. I mean, I think that he is a real major league prospect. I think he has stuff that can succeed in the majors. Still needs to get a little bit better. Probably, generally speaking, across the board, just sharpen up things a little bit. But it's a real stuff profile and not just a Ivy League pitchability type story.
I mean, I have him easily as a top 30 prospect in the system at this point. I have him. I mentioned the other day, so I'm right now updating my prospect list to like post publicly. I know I've kind of hinted at it for a while, but I've been doing some write ups and stuff like that. In my eyes, right now, the top 3 pitching prospects in the organization are Jaxon Wiggins, Brandon Birdsell, and Will Sanders. We'll talk about Will Sanders here in a second. But then after that, there's like 8 dudes that are take your pick on who you like the most, right? It's JP Wheat, it's Grant Kipp, it's Nazir Muley, it's Arian Rodriguez, it's just all these different guys. Right? There's eight or so different guys that are on my list where I'm trying to make sense of them.
Yep.
But the fact that Grant Kipp is in that mix, and I think that Grant Kipp has a reasonable argument to be the 4th best pitching prospect in the Cubs organization, I think is awesome. I am going to have him as close to a top 15 prospect in the organization, definitely a top 20 prospect is my thinking as of right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's really cool.
Yeah. Let's talk about Will Sanders, because I think that we'll end with Jaxon Wiggins and a little bit of his talk. But Will Sanders was arguably over the first, until he got promoted to Iowa, he was starting to take off as the pitching prospect of the year for the Cubs. I mean, I think that like I said, we'll get into Wiggins, but Will Sanders' start in Double-A Knoxville was outrageous. And while the results, like the overall numbers, aren't as pretty in Iowa, I really like that he's kind of holding his own. Like he looks like he belongs in Iowa, even if he's given up a 3 runs over 6 innings or 4 runs over 7 or over 6 innings or whatever it might be. But like he's been, as much as Grant Kipp's been a breakout and Ryan Gallagher and Evan Ostenbeck have been fun, Will Sanders has broken out in his own way.
Yeah, I was just looking it up, and Will Sanders, even after now 4 starts in Iowa, still has only allowed a 305 slugging to left-handed hitters this year. That to me is like, if you want to point to a thing that he broke out in, he has a game plan against right-handed hitters and left-handed hitters that's sort of more nuanced than it's ever been before. He was better against lefties last year as well, but I don't know. It's just like it's a more mature pitch mix. I don't know that anything is truly like major league plus right now, but he's a guy kind of like, Connor Noland could probably be on this list. I think he's won a bunch of games pitching, a lot of quality starts together. ERA is just probably a little high for the All-Star list, but kind of similar guys. Sanders 2025 is a lot like Noland's 2024 in a lot of ways. And it's not going to take much for Will to, just going to be a thing here. I really think if they can find a breaking ball that gets to above average to plus, then he becomes a really interesting depth arm.
So Marquee on their Major League broadcast does, I haven't seen this on many broadcasts, but I love that Marquee does it. And I like to think that Lance Brozdowski had a little part in making this happen. They show a graphic of the opposing starter every single game. And for that opposing starter, they have a breakdown of their pitch mix. And they don't say, like this guy throws 50% fastballs and however many percent slider. They show it for each handed batter. So how they attack lefties and how they attack righties. The other day, when they were playing down in Houston, it was Walter was the guy they faced in game 1 of the series, I believe, on Houston. I forget what his first name is. It was not a name I recognized at all prior to that starting against the Cubs. And he had 6 pitches, and he threw 3 pitches to righties and 3 completely different pitches to lefties. And like that was like such a weird thing to look at, like on this graphic. And Will Sanders isn't quite that, but like he's trending in that direction where he just he's a different pitcher when you watch him pitch against lefties than when he pitches against righties. Just the way he attacks them, and most pitchers are, but I don't think he's ever going to get to that extreme where it's 3 separate pitches for 2 different sides of the plate. But like I think that's how he's going to succeed at the major league level, is being something close to that,
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you the numbers again. I don't have it out by percent, but against righties in AAA, he's throwing a vast majority 4-seam fastballs, and then it's sort of an equal pitch mix of slider and changeup. After that, he's thrown 29 to each. So 29 changeups to righties is pretty interesting. And then it's kind of the kitchen sink, curveball, sinker, cutter. Against lefties, 4-seam fastballs again, but curveballs are the main breaking pitch against them. A lot of changeups as well. And then it's just a little bit of the other ones with, I didn't know this, Greg. He's thrown a splitter 17 times. I think it's probably the changeup.
It's a splinker.
Oh, okay.
It's that splinker that he started
That's
throwing.
right.
I think is how they mark it on Statcast.
Okay.
Which I've said it before. I think that's his best pitch. Honestly, is that splinker.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just because it's fun and it's fun to say that he has a splinker like Paul Skeens. But like I actually think that it's the splinker is indicative of his entire repertoire, where everything is moving just a little bit, right? Like a splinker is not something that moves like a screwball where it's moving an incredible amounts, but it's like it has that same movement where it's kind of diving down and arm side a little bit, but just enough. It's like that the slider kind of acts that way a little bit too, where it's not this big sweeping huge slider. It like moves just enough. The fastball rides up just enough. Like it's indicative of his entire repertoire, I guess.
Totally. Yeah. And then the cutter is a pitch that he throws more to righties than he does to lefties, which is pretty unique too. So he's throwing essentially 7 different pitches. It's now up to the Cubs to sort of tighten it up and make those pitches a little better.
Jaxon Wiggins is the Cubs minor league pitcher of the year, or pitcher of the first half, right? Pretty easily.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, when he got to AA and continued on the trajectory he was on in South Bend, what happens a lot with these sort of pitcher of the year awards is how much time you spend at the level you didn't really belong at tends to matter. And, it inflates your numbers to a point that it wins you the award. But Jaxon's sort of different. Jaxon started in South Bend. We were surprised. He started off just a touch slow and then found his footing really quickly, and then got to AA and just kept going and sort of proved that he did belong there from the beginning. And, over the course of what he's done, starting to make you wonder, does he belong even higher? And, I think he has the stuff that if he gets to AAA, he's still going to have plenty of success there, as long as he doesn't start getting squeezed sort of by the robot umps a little more. But yeah, just a fantastic season. Really clearly did a lot of work to clean his mechanics, and the fact that work led to a reduction in walk rate like it has is really impressive.
Yeah, I hope that we can give him that award. I hope that he's still in the organization so that we can give him that award. I've been on the record saying that I would be shocked. I'd actually be shocked, dude, if he gets dealt at the deadline. I that's a different conversation to have with all these different prospects, obviously, and maybe we'll have that. Maybe we'll have that leading up into the deadline. That might be a conversation worth having. But he's no joke, dude. Like he is, and I want to see it for longer. I want to see it longer than for 2.5 months or whatever we've seen it. Obviously, 3 months, but
right.
He has earned like far and away. These other 4 guys on this list have been terrific. Like been really really good this year. But Jaxon Wiggins, how good he's been, he's just run away with the best pitcher of the first half. It's not really close.
Totally agree.
What are some names that you have in mind that might force their way into the conversation, or might really break out in the second half that you think are worth mentioning here for the end of the season All-Star team?
Well, I mean, one guy we should mention that sort of is in the process of breaking out, that just like didn't quite pitch well enough early in the year, is Tyler Schlafer. Has been just absolutely absurd in the last month. And, I mean, almost is probably an honorable mention for this list. Yeah. And that's just not something we saw coming. And he's been really good. I watched his last couple outings, and, I mean, stuff's up to, he's like sitting 93, 94. He's raised the floor of his fastball, which we talk about sometimes, but I don't know that I do a great job of sort of tracking outing to outing. It can be difficult to do that. He's like, I mean, it'll drop to 91 sometimes, but it's a lot of 93s in an outing and some 94s. And yeah, I mean, the breaking stuff looks good. The changeup's always solid. So yeah, really impressed with Tyler. I would imagine that if he were to stay in South Bend, he's going to continue having success, but wouldn't be shocked if he gets to Knoxville very soon.
And if you want to hear more on Schlafer, go listen to our last episode with Brendan King, because BK did a really good job of outlining maybe kind of the reason for Tyler Schlafer's success recently, mentally from his side of things. Because I know that he's had plenty of interviews with Tyler Schlafer over the past few years. So go check out that episode if you want to know more about Schlafer.
Yep. Justin Florentino in Myrtle Beach only has 3 starts so far, but certainly looks the part and looks like he belongs. He's got a low release point that I think is death on right-handed hitters. And I think the low A level will probably be where he spends the rest of the year, and his stuff is good enough to have a bunch of success there. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was sort of a second half guy. Also in that vein would be Kevin Valdez for me. He's a guy that we haven't mentioned very much, but has like pitched a pretty decent amount for Myrtle Beach. I think he's at 50 innings now. Mm-hmm. And has looked really solid. You never know what you're going to get control wise outing to outing, but it's firm stuff and it's plenty to succeed at that level. So if he were to go on a hot streak, it would not surprise me.
I'll throw in another name for second half. Maybe not logging enough innings to be a full season All-Star in the system, but second half All-Star. Brandon Birdsell is on his way back.
Good call.
Made his second rehab start down in the Arizona Complex League last week, or last week. I can say it here. He should be making a rehab start in South Bend this week is when nice. we can expect that to happen. So he's on his way back. Obviously, that was kind of the expectation, was that he'd go to South Bend for the next rehab start, maybe spend 1 or 2 starts there before making it back up to AAA. it can help out his numbers a little bit if he spends 2 or 3 starts on in South Bend, right? But,
right.
I think that he's a guy to keep an eye out for, because, man, I keep trying to kind of insert his name in conversations here and there, because we've been talking a lot about Jaxon Wiggins.
Mm-hmm.
Jaxon Wiggins is the number 1 pitching prospect in the organization now, but we can't forget about what Brandon Birdsell did just last year. He was minor league pitcher of the year. The stats were very good. If you go look at the minor league StatCast card for him, even better. Like, just red all up and down that card. Like, he was really, really good last year. And so he's not really dropping down any of our prospect lists, but he's just not getting conversation because obviously he hasn't been healthy. So keep an eye out for him for sure this year.
One guy that I don't know that we consider eligible for this list, but certainly could be in the mix and could spend a bunch of time in AAA the rest of the year, is Jordan Wicks, who has looked absolutely fantastic since coming back from his hamstring injury. I think they really utilize that time to have some discussions about mechanics, some discussions about the fastball, discussions about pitch mix and sequencing overall. He's honestly pitching as good as he has, in my mind, in a couple of years. And he'll probably help out in Chicago here and there, but I think the majority is going to be in Iowa. And, if he was one of the better pitchers in that league the rest of the way, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yep, agreed on that. Any other names before we move to the relievers?
No, I think that's it.
So I got 4 names for relievers, and honestly, like, we do spend, like, we joke around about it. We spend a lot of time talking about relievers, but we'll hit on these guys a little bit. But you got to remember that relievers at the halfway point of the season have logged like 20 innings of work. Like, these guys have not logged a lot of work, and multiple of these players have spent the first half of the season at a level that is too low for, like, they should have started a level up. But worth pointing out, again, worth giving these guys their flowers for the strong performances in the first half. These guys, I got 4 names. Riley Martin, who we've talked plenty about on this podcast, and he's been a guest on the show. Braden Reisdorf, who we've given plenty of love to over the course of the show. Jackson Kirkpatrick, who you gave some love to a couple weeks ago. And Mitchell Tyransky, who I've been quick to point out on several occasions here. Riley Martin is the one that is the most it makes the most sense that we see him here, right? Like, we've seen a little bit more of a track record for Riley Martin over the course of the last 3 years or so, and what he's doing is kind of it's just the best possible version of what we could have expected from him. It is obviously a ton of walks, although he's limited those a little bit more. Like, instead of a 17% walk rate, we're looking at a 12% walk rate over the past 2 months or so.
Right.
Just striking out the world. Lots of swings and misses. The fastball is riding up in the zone exactly how you want it. The curveball is one of the best offerings in the system. He is what he is, but just the best possible version in this first half. He's got an ERA pushing down close to 1. He's got guys just are not getting any hits off of him. He's been good, man. He's been really, really good.
I think if I filled out a minor league pitcher of the year ballot, Jaxon Wiggins would be first and Riley Martin would be second for the first half for me. I know the innings, he's way behind a bunch of guys, but what he's done, I mean, he went like 2 months without allowing a run for an Iowa pen that has so much, just the way that especially AAA bullpens work. Like, there's so much in flux all the time. And what Martin has been able to do for that team to just be this sort of consistent presence that's always there and always going to be a shutdown guy in his inning has been really impressive. And I number 2 for me.
Yeah. And also pointing out that, like, the Iowa bullpen has been terrific all year long with guys that have MLB experience. You got Luke Little there, who's been amazing. Ethan Roberts has spent time down in AAA, and he's been very, very good. Phil Bickford, who is a MLB veteran, has been down there performing really well. Brooks Kriskey's been there. Yeah, there's been a lot of guys there that have been performing really well. And a lot of people are still, when people talk about the relief help, they're still asking about Riley Martin, who's not on the 40-man roster, who we haven't seen in the majors. And so for him to stand out compared to the rest is it's really fun from that perspective as well.
Yep.
All right. The other 3, Braden Reisdorf, Jackson Kirkpatrick, and Mitchell Tyransky. Kirkpatrick he spent the year, I think he made his last appearance was in South Bend. He got the call up right after we talked about him. Has spent most of the year in Myrtle Beach after he was a Tread Athletic signing, which is where Cubs, what's his title? Director of pitching? Is that what Tyler Zombro's title is?
I don't think it is, but
No.
I don't know.
The Cubs got
Consultant.
they got Tyler Zombro from Tread, and Jackson Kirkpatrick is a guy that they got from Tread, signed this past offseason, has been absolutely lights out for Myrtle Beach and now South Bend. He's a big dude.
Big.
He's a big dude. Should not have belonged in Myrtle Beach. And Braden Reisdorf, it can kind of be talked about in the same breath here. I just posted earlier today on Sunday that Braden Reisdorf has pitched in 18 games this season and has given up 0 earned runs in 17 of those 18 games. And the one game he did give up a run was a single run. So he's been terrific in both Myrtle Beach and South Bend for a little bit longer. But definitely worth pointing out those two guys.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to throw another name on this list, I would do Nick Hull in Knoxville. He pitched in the rotation 2 of the first 3 outings of the year. It did not go very well. And then moved back to the bullpen. Since moving back to the bullpen, this was April 22nd. He's pitched in 17 games, has a 0.96 ERA and a whip of exactly 1. He's been totally fantastic. If we just, consider what he's done as a reliever for his sort of eligibility here, then he's one of the guys for me.
I was shouting for Nick Hull to be a reliever from the beginning.
That was a very confusing little thing they did, but I think they were really shorthanded on arms, and I think sometimes that happens.
Grant Kipp is to you as Nick Hull is to me. I love me some Nick Hull, man. I do. He's got, I believe, a 16.5% swinging strike rate. That's off the dome, so don't quote me on that. But the fact that I also feel pretty good about knowing that is one of the nerdiest things I've done on the show. 16.5% swing strike rate, very strong for him. And that's something as a reliever that's going to be super, super important. So, yeah, Mitchell Tyransky, Nick Hull, honorable mention. Those guys have been terrific down in AA Knoxville. And already
my guy Luis Martinez Gomez, honorable mention too. He's walking about a guy an inning, but he's succeeding despite that. He pitches an absolute ton. I feel like every time I look at a Myrtle Beach box score, like sometimes he'll come in for just like 1 out or something. I don't quite know the purpose of that, if I'm being honest, but he's been a stalwart for them, really an important presence in their bullpen, and still has really sort of loud stuff. And man, he's almost down to sidearm now and succeeding a lot.
Yeah, I don't really have any other names to look out for the rest of the year. When it comes to relievers, you ride the wave a little bit, man. Like just
exactly.
Whoever pops up, enjoy it. Like enjoy the chaos. So I have nobody else to add.
Yeah, I mean, someone will move to the bullpen and probably be really good. I haven't quite thought through who that could be, but that will happen.
All right, let's talk position players. We'll start with the infield. I've lumped the catcher and DH position into this infield. That is, at catcher, I've got Moises Ballesteros. At first base, Jonathan Long. Second base, I threw Jefferson Rojas at second base for the purpose of this all-star team. Pedro Ramirez is at third base, which he's actually logged more innings at third, or more games at third than second, which is interesting to me. Cristian Hernandez, I put at shortstop, and then Cameron Cisneros is the DH, who is typically a first baseman. So, let's talk a little bit about Pedro Ramirez. I know you did kind of a deep dive into Pedro.
I've been watching a ton of Pedro. Yeah, I've been watching an absolute ton. I mean, the Southern League is just like the worst place to hit in America, essentially. I mean, to have any success there offensively is like found money. And Pedro is having the best month of his career, I think. He's found a little bit of power this month, which has been pretty cool. It's all from the left side. But man, he's hit a couple ones really, really well. I saw him hit 104 mile per hour sort of laser home run. He turned on one and hit a high bomb the other day. He's really impressed me. I mean, he's got fantastic hand-eye coordination, almost like sort of James Triantos level, one probably notch below when it comes to like just bat to ball. But hits lasers. And I said in our Discord, like, I would be shocked if this isn't the highest he's ever had in average exit velocity in a season. I would be shocked if he's not hitting more balls at, like, whatever sort of plateau you want to say, if it's 98 miles per hour or more off the bat, like hitting that more often than ever before. It's just it's hard hit ball, one after the other, line drives, mostly like sort of when he's batting lefty, line drives that he pulls over the second baseman's head. Really impressive. And then defensively, I think he went 7 weeks without an error, which, for a young player in the minor leagues is not something you almost ever see. And that was someone who's jumping between two positions. So sure-handed guy, makes good swing decisions. I have to imagine, the coaching staff there just adores him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that every coaching staff that has Pedro Ramirez, every scout that's ever watched Pedro Ramirez seems to love Pedro Ramirez. He's been really strong. If you're looking at like you said, the it's hard to hit in the Southern League. It is. I posted about it the other day. I forget what the exact numbers were, but like the league-wide OPS in the International League, which is AAA for Iowa, is almost, it's like right around like 100 points. The league-wide OPS is about 100 points higher than the Southern League where Tennessee or where Knoxville plays.
Yeah.
Which is like absurd. Like it's a harder league to hit in than the Carolina League, which is like notoriously a pitchers league, which is where Myrtle Beach plays. So it's been outrageous. I posted that Corey Joyce in AA technically has a higher OPS plus than Moises Ballesteros this year because of how he's the numbers he's putting up in the Southern League compared to Moises in the International League. So Pedro's been really, really impressive all year. Cameron Cisneros is a guy we've talked quite a bit about. He's now up in South Bend in High A and starting on a regular basis at first base and DH.
One of your favorites, safe to say?
Cameron Cisneros? I think I just like a rowdy boy, man. I like a big boy at first base. I really like Cameron Cisneros. And I know that Brad posted a couple days ago about the comps of his stance and swing. So was it Larry Walker? Is that
Larry Walker? Yeah.
It's like it does. It looks like spot on as Larry Walker's stance and swing. Man. Cameron Cisneros is an example of like I'm just gonna ride out this fun as long as humanly possible because like I think it's awesome that he's hitting the way that he is and not striking out ever, which is like not when you look at Cameron Cisneros, you don't look at a guy that has like a sub 10% strikeout rate. You're like, oh, like he hits some bombs, but also strikes out 30% of the time. That's just like simply not the case.
Yeah.
All season long. So he's been super fun. The big three up top there, catcher, first base, and second base, Moises Ballesteros, Johnny Long, Jefferson Rojas, like no doubters to be on this first half All-Star team. Jefferson Rojas, we've talked about, is like in serious consideration to be the top prospect in the Cubs organization, the way he's performing this year. Mm-hmm. Moises Ballesteros likely is the top prospect, and we know all about him. And Johnny Long has simply been tremendous. He's come back down to earth quite a bit over the last, like, let's call it the last month, but still just outrageous numbers across the board for all three of those guys up top.
The name that surprises me the most that he's just had as much success as he's had this year is Rojas, because he started the year injured. And, I kind of figure, even though he was a guy that we wondered, like, could he start the year in AA? I didn't really think the Cubs would go that direction, but then when he was injured, I was like, I bet he kind of gets to South Bend and struggles and takes his time a little bit to find his footing. And he really didn't. I mean, he was hitting pretty much out of the gate. He's hit every month, went in a little slump in early June and has pulled himself right out of it. The last 10 days or so is looking really good again. I mean, gosh, even in June when he hasn't hit his best, 18 walks to 9 strikeouts. Like, I guess we could say right now, this guy should go to AA. It's probably time. If we have a month of 18 walks and 9 strikeouts, well, we're not doing anything worthy developmentally that we can't be doing in AA. So move up Jefferson, and just a awesome half.
Cristian Hernandez is the tricky one as far as first half All-Stars. Because if we're going off of like their stats this season,
Corey Joyce.
It would be Corey Joyce, dude. Like,
for sure.
Corey Joyce, who was signed as a free agent, right? As a minor league free agent, I think early in the season. It wasn't even an off-season signing. Was Corey Joyce? He was signed early in the season and has been basically starting at shortstop every day for the Knoxville Smokies. And he's got, I think, 180 plate appearances, something like that, and has been really, really strong this season. So there's an argument for Corey Joyce there at shortstop. I went with Cristian Hernandez, probably just because he's more of a traditional prospect and because he's been really good defensively. I asked BK last week about Cristian Hernandez, and basically he just gushed about his defense more than anything up the middle at shortstop. And so that makes an impact here as a part of my first half all-star team. But like, if we're looking at Christian's numbers across the board, I think the OPS is above league average, but not by a ton. I think he's got like a 104 OPS plus. Like, he hasn't been lighting the world on fire offensively, but he's been good enough paired with the defense, paired with enough juice to jump up some prospect rankings a little bit. So I'll include him here.
Yeah, I mean, to pile on what Brendan said last week, no errors for Cristian since May 22nd. So
he's good, man. He's
impressive.
Really good there. And that's why I threw him here at short. Him and Jefferson have been splitting time pretty good, but like Cristian is the better. Not that Jefferson's bad, but Cristian is the better shortstop because he's smooth over there.
Yep.
Any names that I might have missed or any names you want to look out for the second half?
Well, I mean, we should probably talk about the Iowa pair of Ballesteros and Long. You know, Johnny Long was, definitely the story of the first 8 weeks of the season. Just came out like gangbusters, just hitting everything as hard as can be. Ballesteros, kind of a similar story. Was also sort of doing the same thing, hitting everything really hard. I mean, the Ballesteros thing that just blew us all away is how young he is to have as much success in AAA as he's having. Those guys, I mean, I think you'd say the Rojas Hernandez combo in South Bend is going about as well as we could have hoped for, and the Ballesteros Long combo is going about as well in AAA as we could have hoped for. So, those are checking all the boxes for this farm system that you wanted to have checked for sure.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add about those two guys. We talked about them plenty. They were as locky. They were as easy to lock in to a first half all-star team as maybe anyone outside of Jaxon Wiggins on this list. I mean, they've both just been outrageously good. And if allowing Cameron Cisneros to be plugged in at DH, not a whole lot of competition at first base or catcher for those guys, right? I think that like Moises Ballesteros is the catcher in the organization when it comes to putting up great numbers. So, yeah.
I guess, I mean, if we were awarding true like anyone, Carlos Perez, the veteran minor league signing for Iowa, has been amazing, four-digit OPS. As far as second half goes, BJ Murray is a guy I keep waiting to catch absolute fire. I mean, he's had a solid half, probably, I think above league average numbers, 328 on base, 400 slugging, leads the team in home runs by, he's doubled everyone else as far as home runs go. So I think he's going to catch a streak here where he just goes nuclear for 2 weeks and the overall numbers come up to sort of a higher benchmark. So that's one that really jumps out that I bet does have a really good second half.
Yeah, James Triantos is the name. I mean, he's had a rough and weird and injury-plagued first half of the season. He's really coming into his own this past week. He's at 2 home runs, a couple doubles this week for Iowa. So look for him to kind of catch fire over the next few weeks and into the second half of the season, hopefully with the Cubs. We'll see. James Triantos is definitely the name here for me to look out for. All right, let's go outfielders. I've got 3 outfielders here: Carter Trice, Owen Caissie, and Ivan Bredauer was the third one. He probably warrants a little bit more of the conversation in terms of like why he's here. Carter Trice, we've talked about a lot the past 2 episodes, and so I don't want to dig in too deep on him since we already have. But maybe the biggest surprise of the position players, Carter Trice is probably the biggest surprise here, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah, somebody who had some clear tools, but hadn't really put together even a great sort of 4-week stretch at a plate ever. So, yeah, he's been awesome and super consistent.
And then Owen Caissie actually putting together, I documented again on social media, the differences in some of Owen Caissie's under the hood numbers, some of the StatCast metrics compared to last year in Iowa. Obviously, he spent both years in AAA Iowa. This year, he's striking out more than he did last year. He's striking out 31% this year, which I think last year was 28-ish%. But besides that, he is not chasing. The chase is a whole lot better than last year. He's still hitting the ball just as hard as he was last year. He is pulling the ball. He's pulling the ball in the air more. He's making more solid contact as far as launch angles and sweet spot. Like everything has been better for Owen Caissie this year compared to last year, which is kind of weird because that wasn't the narrative around Owen Caissie 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, and he's just really turned it on. The process was good all year this year. The results have kind of really started to show out the past month.
Yeah, we talked 2 weeks ago about how we were feeling the prospect fatigue around him, and then he had a really good few days after that podcast came out and actually passed Ballesteros and Long in season long OPS, and I do think kind of got the notice of some people, and I started to feel like that narrative began to shift a little bit. So that was good to hear.
Ivan Bredauer is the interesting name here. I was looking for the third outfielder for the All-Star team, and really nobody stands out in a huge way. Ivan Bredauer, if you're looking at the overall numbers, probably is the All-Star nod. But his numbers are also really weird, dude. I looked into the hit by pitches. Hits by pitch. I've looked into the HBPs for Ivan Bredauer this season, which he has 19 of them this season. He's been hit by a pitch 19 times, which is by far the most in the Cubs organization. The second most is, I believe, Cameron Cisneros, who has 9. He has 10 more than the second place guy in the organization. He has the fourth most hit by pitches in all of minor league baseball. If you were to remove all of his hit by pitches this season, you would remove 71 points of his on base percentage. Just the HBPs represent 71 points of OBP, and that is a crazy number. And so that kind of skews things. Maybe that's a skill. Maybe that's a skill that he has in getting hit by pitch, especially because he's such a big dude that he's going to be pitched in a lot. So maybe that's a skill, but it also is just something really weird, and it feels unsustainable. But he's still been impressive this season. I don't want to take away from the fact that he's been pretty impressive this season. Good across the board. The contact skills are decent. The power hasn't really shown up in a big way yet, but we know it's in there. He's stealing some bases. I think 18 stolen bases this season, playing some decent outfield. He's good across the board, but not I expected him to come in and just be a big bopper, home run power type guy. He's just been kind of good across the board.
There's few players who have a bigger difference in what you would read their numbers and think they were as a player versus what they look like when you see them in person than Ivan, because you're talking a guy who has a 414 on base percentage and a 351 slugging and 18 steals in 20 tries. You imagine that player, and that's like Brett Bateman, right?
Yeah.
That's what you imagine when you see that, and instead you get this absolute Hulk of a dude. But he's making it work, and that's really cool. And strikeout rate's been cut down a little bit this month. I think the Cubs probably don't feel much pressure for the power to start coming until a little later. If they can get that strikeout rate down, kind of like they did with Cristian Hernandez, like back when he was in low A, we believe the power's in there. We believe the bat speed, the strength, all that's going to combine to power in time. Let's get the mechanics working in a place where you're making enough contact for it to matter. And, I think it's been a good success for him.
You got any names to call out for guys to look out for in the second half? Because I have several.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Leo Espinosa is a guy that definitely, I think, probably an honorable mention for this list. I mean, he has a 695 OPS in the Carolina League, another place that nobody hits at all. So I think he's a guy that the longer he stays in Myrtle Beach, the more likely he is to have success and end up on a list like this. Kevin Alcantara is having an awesome week. And we've kind of been waiting for that true hot streak that we know he always goes on. He always is going to find, an incredible 2-week stretch. And they faced a lot of lefties this week, and his numbers against lefties are awesome. And you talk about a guy that find a way to help the big league team and show that you have a skill that's going to contribute to a playoff team. It's pretty interesting to me that he has a 950 OPS or something against lefties, in addition to what he can do on the bases and defensively. There's some use there. Is there more use than Justin Turner and his leadership skills? I don't know. They clearly don't think that right now, but as we get further down the season, it's something worth asking. Those are the two that really jump out. Who you got?
I got Christian Franklin for one. I think that he's just kind of done enough to be a good player. He's just kind of hung around there, both in terms of how he looks and how he's hitting the ball and how he's working counts and stuff like that, but also producing results as well. Like not good enough to be an all-star in the first half, but I think good enough to kind of linger around and really take off and be an organization all-star by the end of the year. He's one name. Another guy I've got is Eli Lovich, who has been not great in the first half, or not the first half, the first few weeks that he's been in Myrtle Beach, but still looks the part to a certain degree. And so
he really does.
Yeah, Eli Lovich is a name for me there. Jose Escobar is someone that I had high hopes for entering this 2025 campaign. Has really struggled in Myrtle Beach, but if he stays down in Myrtle Beach, which I think he will, I think that now at this point he'll be there a full season's worth of at bats. Second half of last year, first half of this year. Excited to see him turn it on in the second half potentially. Yeah, I think those are the main names that I'm looking at. In addition to, I was going to mention Alcantara. One last name is Brett Bateman, who you just briefly mentioned.
Yeah.
Not going to put up crazy numbers anywhere, but I will say that, like, obviously he got off to a late start because of injury as well. If he can raise the batting average, he's never going to be a guy that hits for any power at all. But if he keeps playing Gold Glove defense in center field and can get on base a little bit more, that's a guy worth mentioning at the end of the year, worth keeping an eye on the second half.
Player of the year so far, who would you choose?
That's good.
I got mine locked in my mind. So
you got yours locked. Okay, locked because you think it's easy, or locked because you just believe. If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, Johnny Long would have been my answer. I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a rough couple weeks. I don't know. I think for the first half, let's call it Johnny Long for the first half. I'll give it to him. Yeah, who you got?
I'm gonna go Ballesteros. I think the consistency's been there. I think he's obviously playing the more premium position more often. Yeah. We can argue whether that's a good thing or not, but he's logging innings there, and that's important. And then the sort of old school freak in me just loves the fact that he's hitting 332 still. This is just this is a dude that's just doing what he's best at the highest level of the minor league ladder at age 21. It all just lines up to a big impressive output.
We will wrap this up with your prediction for the player of the year long this time in 3 months from now. Who do you got for that?
Oh man. I think because the really hard part about this is that you also have to consider who the odds are that they might trade somebody. Yeah. And that sort of makes it hard to pick. Part of me wants to pick an Owen Caissie. There's obviously big signs that he might be the guy that gets moved. Shoot, I'll go Ballesteros to stick with it because I don't think they'll find a trade partner that matches up there that well. Yeah. And so I think he stays in the org. I don't think he spends an extended amount of time in the majors. So I think he's going to be in Iowa. I don't see any reason he's going to slump. I'll go with him.
I feel passionately about this one. Okay. If he stays in the organization past the trade deadline, Owen Caissie is going to be the answer here. It's going to be Owen Caissie because I think he'll spend the rest of the year in AAA. Owen Caissie's my guy here. If Owen Caissie's traded away, I don't think it's going to be Moises Ballesteros because he's won the past 2 years. And for him to win 3 straight years,
good point.
For him to win 3 straight years, that'd be a wild sight. So I'm going to go Jefferson Rojas. I think he gets called up to the Double-A, and if he performs well enough, the Cubs love giving those awards to guys that are young in their system, and give it to Jefferson Rojas, assuming that that Owen Caissie's not in the organization anymore.
Shoot, I like your answers better.
Ivan, that's all we got for today's show. You and I actually went longer than we expected, but what else is new? That's what we do. We ramble on the show. We can find you over on Blue Sky, over on Twitter. Find me on both those sites. Find both of us over the 1060 West Discord channel. If you're looking to have access to that and talk prospects over there, it's a super fun place to do that. Reach out to Brian, and he can grant you some access over there. But with that, I think that's all we got. We'll be back, like I said, next week with a kind of draft and Cubs current prospect centric episode with me and Greg Zumak. So in the meantime, we'll be back in your ears in one short week. Thanks, guys.
Go Cubs.